The first sign came not with a bang, but with a whisper of quantum disruption across Earth's orbital monitoring systems. Dr. Annika Sharma's fingers flew across holographic displays in the United Global Defense Hub, located deep beneath the Andes Mountains. Her team of astronomers and quantum physicists had been tracking anomalous readings for weeks, subtle distortions in space-time that hinted at something far beyond conventional technology. "Incoming quantum signature," she muttered, her voice cutting through the low hum of sophisticated equipment. "This is not like anything in our databases." Beside her, Dr. Marcus Reynolds, a veteran of deep space research, leaned in. His prosthetic eye, a remnant from humanity's first extrasolar exploration missions, flickered with enhanced data streams. "Those quantum fluctuations match nothing in our predictive models. It's like someone's trying to mask an approach." Thousands of kilometers away, in a small tracking station on the outskirts of Nairobi, senior technician Kwame Osi noticed something peculiar. His equipment, a custom-built array of sensors developed from a fusion of terrestrial and recovered alien technologies, picked up a microscopic signature that seemed to dance between dimensions. "Command, I'm detecting something." Kwame's voice crackled through the communication system. "It's not just a ship. It's more like a wave of potential." The Global Defense Network had been a long-term project born from humanity's painful lessons. Decades of careful preparation, of studying recovered alien artifacts, of building a truly global defense infrastructure, were about to be tested. In orbit, the first visual confirmation came unexpectedly. The International Space Station's advanced sensors captured a momentary shimmer, a distortion that suggested something was bending light itself, not breaking through space, but sliding between its fundamental layers. Captain Miranda Chen received the initial report while conducting a routine inspection of the orbital defense platform Prometheus. Her background was unique, a third-generation space marine whose parents had fought in the early extraterrestrial conflicts. She represented humanity's evolved approach to potential threats. "Confirm visual," she commanded, her augmented neural interface linking directly with the station's sensor arrays. The shimmer resolved. Not a single ship, but a coordinated fleet of biomechanical vessels that seemed to breathe and pulse with an organic intelligence. The Zarkax Imperium had arrived, and they believed their approach was undetectable. They were wrong. What the Zarkax did not understand was humanity's fundamental nature. Every technological advance, every seemingly random research project, every international collaboration had been subtly preparing for this moment. The underground research facilities weren't just scientific outposts. They were forward-deployed strategic centers. In a secret facility beneath Tokyo, Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura reviewed the incoming data. His team had spent decades developing quantum entanglement communication systems that could operate beyond conventional electromagnetic spectrums. The alien approach was being mapped, analyzed, and countered in real time. "They're using a quantum compression field," Nakamura observed to his team. "Designed to avoid standard detection methods. Impressive technology, but not unbreakable." A young researcher named Lena Rodriguez, daughter of the quantum physicist who would later play a crucial role, noticed something else. The aliens' approach had a rhythm, a pattern that suggested more than just technological superiority. It spoke of a deep-seated arrogance, a belief in their own invincibility. "They think we're blind," she whispered, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "They have no idea." The Global Defense Network was not a single system, but a living, breathing organism. Military installations, research centers, communication networks, and civilian infrastructure were all interconnected in ways the Zarkax could not comprehend. As the alien fleet continued its approach, believing itself undetected, humanity was already several steps ahead. This was not going to be an invasion. This was going to be a demonstration. A demonstration of why no one should ever challenge Terra's children. The first Zarkax dropships descended like metallic nightmares, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with an alien energy that seemed to warp the very atmosphere around them. They targeted strategic locations, major cities, communication hubs, government centers, expecting total capitulation. Instead, they found chaos. In Mumbai, Priya Chaudhary, a former cybersecurity expert turned emergency response coordinator, watched the initial assault with cold calculation. The city's infrastructure was more than just concrete and steel. It was a living network of adaptive systems she had helped design over the past decade. As the first plasma rounds struck the city's outer districts, something unexpected happened. Buildings shifted, not collapsed, shifted. Reinforced metamaterials developed in secret laboratories began to redistribute kinetic energy, absorbing and redirecting the alien weaponry. Solar panels transformed into energy dispersal shields. Underground transit systems became instant evacuation networks. Rerouting civilian population, Priya spoke into her quantum-encrypted comm device. Activate Urban Defense Protocol Chimera. Thousands of kilometers away, in a mobile command center tracking the global response, Colonel Jack Martinez observed the unfolding scenario with a veteran's eye. The Zarkax had a fatal misconception about human warfare. They expected a centralized hierarchical response. Humanity had evolved beyond that. The attack became a distributed network of resistance, where traditional military doctrine would concentrate forces, humans fragmented and multiplied. Every civilian became a potential sensor, every smartphone a potential weapon, every piece of infrastructure a potential defensive system. In the Arctic research station Polaris, Dr. Elena Rodriguez completed a crucial piece of technology she had been developing for years. The quantum disruptor wasn't just a weapon. It was a complete reimagining of technological warfare. Initializing quantum entanglement cascade, she muttered, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. The device looked like nothing more than a modified satellite communications array. Its true purpose was far more complex. The Zarkax ground forces encountered their first true surprise in the Brazilian Amazon. What appeared to be a simple research outpost was actually a cutting-edge biotechnological defense center. As alien troops moved in, expecting an easy conquest, the very environment came alive. Genetically modified plant species, developed originally for climate restoration, transformed into active defensive systems. Vines with carbon nanotube-enhanced cellular structures wrapped around alien machinery. Spores released targeted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted alien communication frequencies. In the Pacific Northwest, a network of former tech workers, environmental engineers, and retired military personnel had prepared for decades. Their response was immediate and surgical. Drone swarms emerged from hidden mountain facilities, each unit a small but intelligent part of a greater whole. They weren't just machines. They were an extension of human strategic thinking. The Zarkax commander, Sub-Regent Kreltax, watched in growing horror as his perfectly planned invasion dissolved into unpredictability. Their invasion models had been based on hundreds of conquered civilizations, rigid, predictable species that collapsed under concentrated force. Humans were nothing like those models. Each attack was met with a response that defied conventional warfare. When the aliens targeted communication infrastructure, human networks instantly decentralized. Mesh networks sprouted like digital mushrooms, routing communications through satellites, ground stations, even vehicle-mounted repeaters. In the Mediterranean, a group of marine biologists turned their underwater research station into a sophisticated electronic warfare platform. Using advanced acoustic technologies originally developed for marine conservation, they began to map and disrupt the Zarkax fleet's communication systems. The invasion was becoming something else entirely, a global, multidimensional response that the Zarkax could not comprehend. It wasn't just a defense. It was a complete reimagining of conflict itself. Humanity was fighting, but more importantly, humanity was learning. and the Zarkax were about to discover that learning was the most dangerous weapon of all. Deep within the Atacama Desert, the Horizon Research Complex stood as a testament to human potential. What appeared to be a simple array of solar collectors and communication arrays was, in reality, the most advanced xenotechnology research facility on the planet. Dr. Imani Okeke walked the sterile white corridors, her augmented reality contact lenses parsing terabytes of data with each blink. The alien technology recovered from previous encounters. Fragments from earlier, more subtle extraterrestrial probes, was about to become humanity's most potent weapon. Quantum resonance at 97.3% synchronization, her AI assistant whispered through her neural implant. Alien tech integration protocols are stabilizing. The Zarkax invasion had done something they never intended. It had accelerated human technological development by decades, perhaps centuries. Every piece of captured alien equipment became a puzzle to be solved, a technology to be understood and ultimately subverted. In orbit, the International Space Station had transformed into something far beyond its original design. What was once a symbol of international cooperation was now a forward research platform and tactical command center. Commander Sofia Rodriguez, no relation to the quantum physicist below, oversaw a team of researchers and military strategists who were doing something unprecedented. They were hacking alien technology in real time. Each Zarkax weapon that struck Earth was immediately analyzed, its fundamental principles decoded and understood. Quantum computers running advanced machine learning algorithms worked faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. Where the aliens saw a weapon of conquest, humans saw an opportunity for innovation. Thousands of kilometers away, in a repurposed semiconductor factory in Shenzhen, a team of young engineers was doing something extraordinary. Led by Wei Chen, a 28-year-old prodigy who had grown up hearing stories of humanity's first encounters with extraterrestrial technologies, they were constructing something that defied conventional understanding. It's not about copying their technology, Wei explained to her team. It's about understanding the fundamental principles and then building something entirely new. The device they were creating looked like nothing the Zarkax could comprehend. Part quantum computer, part adaptive communication array, part weapon. It was a pure expression of human creativity. Each component was designed to be modular, replaceable, adaptable. If one part failed, the entire system would reconfigure itself instantaneously. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Pacific Ocean, a different kind of research was happening. The underwater city of New Atlantis, a marvel of human engineering, had become a critical research hub. Here, marine biologists, quantum physicists, and nanotechnology experts worked on something the Zarkax could never predict. Biomimetic systems that could learn and adapt faster than any artificial intelligence. Neural networks inspired by the complex ecosystems of deep-sea organisms. Technologies that could think, learn, and evolve in milliseconds. Sub-Regent Krelltax of the Zarkax invasion force received increasingly disturbing reports. Their most advanced scanning technologies were being turned against them. Human researchers were not just defending. They were actively learning, improving, evolving. Every weapon the Zarkax deployed became a lesson for humanity. In the Australian outback, a network of indigenous researchers worked alongside quantum physicists, combining traditional ecological knowledge with cutting-edge science. They understood something the Zarkax could never comprehend. That true innovation comes from diversity, from the ability to see problems from multiple perspectives. Their research focused on adaptive camouflage technologies that could change not just visually, but at a quantum informational level. Surfaces that could become invisible, not by blocking light, but by fundamentally altering the way information about their existence was perceived. The invasion was no longer just a military conflict. It had become a profound technological conversation, and humanity was about to deliver a message that would echo across the galaxy. The Zarkax had made a critical mistake. They had not just attacked a planet. They had awakened a species with an unlimited capacity for innovation. Dr. Amara Okoro leaned back in her chair, a constellation of holographic displays dancing around her. The Psychological Warfare Research Center was unlike any military installation in human history. Here, warfare was not about bullets or energy weapons, but about the most complex battlefield imaginable: consciousness itself. Quantum resonance frequency identified. Her AI assistant, Terra, announced. The acronym stood for Advanced Resonance Intelligence Algorithm, a system that was part communication tool, part psychological profiler, part strategic weapon. The Zarkax believed they understood psychological warfare. They had conquered hundreds of species, breaking their will through calculated terror and overwhelming force. But humanity was about to demonstrate that true psychological warfare was an art form, a complex symphony of information, emotion, and unexpected complexity. In a secure facility beneath Seoul, a team of linguists, neuroscientists, and quantum communication experts worked on something unprecedented. They weren't just intercepting Zarkax communications, they were rewriting them at a fundamental level. Jin Soo Park, the lead linguist, had spent his entire career studying alien communication patterns. It's not about translation, he explained to his team. It's about understanding the emotional and cognitive infrastructure of their communication. The team developed a series of quantum-encoded messages that did something far more sophisticated than simple disinformation. These were cognitive Trojan horses, communications that would subtly alter the neural pathways of the Zarkax communication networks. Imagine a message that doesn't just convey information, but fundamentally restructures the way information is processed. Across the globe, artists, musicians, and cultural researchers became unexpected warriors. A group of indigenous Australian sound engineers created audio patterns that exploited the unique neurological vulnerabilities in the Zarkax communication systems. Traditional music, encoded with quantum information, became a weapon more powerful than any conventional armament. In the Canadian Arctic, a team of indigenous programmers and quantum researchers developed something extraordinary. Drawing from centuries of oral tradition and cutting-edge quantum communication technologies, they created information vectors that were part story, part weapon, part healing mechanism. Sub-Regent Kreltax first noticed the problem during a routine strategic communication. The standard hierarchical information flow began to shift, not break, not collapse, but subtly transform. Reports from invasion units became increasingly fragmented. Confidence turned to uncertainty. Strategic clarity dissolved into existential doubt. The Zarkax had a critical vulnerability. Their entire civilization was built on a highly structured communication network that assumed absolute predictability. Humanity introduced something they could not comprehend: radical unpredictability. In the mountains of Peru, a research team led by Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked on something that defied conventional understanding. They were creating communication technologies that didn't just transmit information, they transmitted potential. Imagine a message that exists in multiple states simultaneously, a communication that is both a warning and a peace offering, a transmission that is simultaneously a weapon, a negotiation, and a work of art. The psychological warfare was multilayered. Physical disruption was just the surface. The real battle was happening at the level of consciousness, of perception, of fundamental understanding. Military strategists discovered something profound. Traditional warfare was about territory. This was about redefining the very concept of conflict. Marine Sergeant Kai Liu, monitoring communication intercepts, watched in fascination as Zarkax battle groups began to fragment, not through violence, but through a slow, inexorable dissolution of shared purpose. They're losing their collective narrative, he muttered to his team. We're not just fighting them. We're unraveling their entire conceptual framework. The Zarkax had made a fundamental mistake. They had attacked a species that understood something they could never comprehend, that the most powerful weapon is not something you launch, but something you imagine. And humanity was about to launch an imagination unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The turning point came from an unexpected source. Dr. Zoran Nguyen stood in the middle of what appeared to be controlled chaos. The Global Emergent Systems Laboratory wasn't a traditional research facility. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation that blurred the lines between biology, technology, and pure imagination. Her latest project wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even a technology in the conventional sense. It was something far more radical. Biomimetic Adaptive Network coming online, she whispered, her augmented reality interface showing a complex web of connections that looked more like a living organism than any computer system ever designed. The project drew from disciplines that the Zarkax could never understand. Indigenous ecological knowledge from the Amazon, quantum computing principles developed in Shanghai, neurological research from Cape Town, ecological modeling from New Zealand. Each contribution was a thread in a tapestry of unprecedented complexity. Across the planet, similar laboratories were experiencing breakthrough moments. In the depths of the Mariana Trench, marine researchers had developed communication systems based on the complex neural networks of deep-sea organisms. Their technology didn't just transmit information, it evolved it. Commander Sofia Rodriguez received the first reports from the Deep-Sea Research Station. The communication came not as a simple data burst, but as a living, breathing information ecosystem. "It's alive," one of her researchers said, her voice a mixture of awe and scientific precision. The communication system isn't just transmitting, it's thinking. The Zarkax invasion had done something unexpected. They had created the perfect conditions for human potential to explode into something entirely unprecedented. In the Australian outback, a group of indigenous researchers had been working on something that defied conventional scientific understanding. Drawing from tens of thousands of years of ecological knowledge, they had developed a system of environmental interaction that was part technology, part living organism, part cultural memory. Their research base looked like nothing the Zarkax could comprehend. Part greenhouse, part quantum computing center, part cultural preservation site. Each plant, each piece of equipment was part of a larger living network. Dr. Imani O'Keefe from the Atacama Research Complex discovered something extraordinary. The alien technologies they had been studying weren't just machines. They were incomplete systems waiting to be completed by a truly adaptive intelligence. "We're not reverse engineering," she explained to her team. "We're having a conversation with potential itself." The Zarkax invasion fleet began to experience anomalies that defied their understanding. Communication networks started to behave in ways that violated every known principle of their technological infrastructure. Sub-Regent Krelltax received reports that made no sense. Invasion units were experiencing collective hallucinations. Strategic networks were developing what could only be described as emergent consciousness. Their perfectly structured hierarchical systems were transforming into something fluid, unpredictable, alive. In the mountains of Nipple, a monastery that had been secretly working with quantum researchers for decades unveiled their contribution. It wasn't a weapon. It was a method of collective consciousness that drew from centuries of meditative practices and cutting-edge quantum communication technologies. Imagine a weapon that was also a healing process, a defense system that was simultaneously an act of creation. The global response to the invasion was becoming something entirely new. Not a unified military force, but a living, breathing, adaptive network of human potential. Dr. Zora Nguyen watched as her biomimetic adaptive network came fully online. It wasn't just a system. It was an ecosystem of human potential. The Zarkax had made a critical mistake. They had not just attacked a planet. They had triggered the emergence of something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity was evolving, and the universe would never be the same. The Galactic Conclave had not convened in 3 centuries. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in a massive station constructed from the crystalline remnants of a long-dead neutron star. The emergency session was unprecedented and entirely focused on one unexpected phenomenon: humans. Ambassador Krellvax of the Syndicate of Unified Planetary Systems stood at the central podium, his multifaceted sensory organs shifting through spectrums of communication. Around him, holographic representations of civilizations flickered. some ancient, some young, all watching. The human response defies every known model of species interaction. Krulvax began, his translator rendering his complex bioelectric communication into something approaching standard galactic language. They are not just resisting, they are transforming the very nature of conflict. Deep within the Conclave's archives, historical records began to shift, not through any intentional manipulation, but through a cascading effect of new information. The human response was rewriting understood principles of galactic interaction. On the communication networks that spanned thousands of light years, something extraordinary was happening. Species that had been subjugated by the Zarkax for generations began to share something unprecedented: hope. Fragments of human communication leaked through. Not military transmissions, but something far more complex. Cultural exchanges, scientific discoveries, philosophical insights. Each transmission was like a seed of potential, taking root in civilizations that had long forgotten the concept of resistance. The Quantum Diplomatic Archive on Epsilon Eridani's Central Research Station received the first complete transmission. Dr. Lyran Tak, a xenoanthropologist with 6 doctoral degrees and centuries of experience, spent 3 days in silent contemplation after analyzing its contents. "This is not a species," she finally reported to the Galactic Conclave. "This is a living system of potential." What made humans truly terrifying was not their technology. It was their ability to turn every interaction into an opportunity for growth. In the vast communication networks that connected galactic civilizations, human transmissions began to appear like unexpected symphonies. They didn't follow established communication protocols. They rewrote them. The Zarkax had conquered hundreds of species by understanding their limitations. Humans seemed to have no concept of limitation. A transmission intercepted from a human research station captured the essence of their approach. It wasn't a military strategy. It was a philosophy of existence. Every challenge is an invitation to become something more. Resistance movements on subjugated worlds began to change. Where once there was hopeless struggle, now there was a new kind of strategy. Inspired by human transmissions, species began to see conflict not as destruction, but as transformation. The Galactic Economic Consortium, a network that had existed for millennia, found its fundamental models becoming obsolete. Human economic interactions didn't follow established patterns. They created new ones. A small trading outpost near the Carina Nebula received a transmission that would become legendary. It was a complex mathematical model that was simultaneously a method of economic exchange, a piece of art, and a philosophical treatise. Ambassador Krulvax watched in growing uncertainty as the carefully constructed galactic order began to shift. The Zarkax invasion was no longer just a military conflict. It had become something far more profound. A catalyst. Buried deep in the transmission archives, a message began to circulate. Its origin was unclear. Its implications were earth-shattering. "We are not here to conquer. We are here to evolve. Together." The Galactic Conclave fell silent. Something fundamental was changing. And no one, not a single species in the vast cosmic network, could predict what would happen next. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same. The final battle was nothing like anyone had predicted. Sub-Regent Krultax of the Zarkax Imperium stood on the bridge of the eternal subjugation, watching as reality itself seemed to warp around their invasion fleet. What had begun as a simple conquest had become something nightmarish and incomprehensible. Their most advanced quantum weapons were turning against them, not through external interference, but through a process that defied all known principles of technological warfare. Captain Miranda Chen watched from Earth's primary defense platform, but she wasn't commanding in any traditional sense. She was orchestrating, conducting a symphony of potential that stretched far beyond conventional military strategy. The defense wasn't a single system. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of human potential. In the depths of the Pacific, Dr. Elena Rodriguez activated the final phase of a project that had been decades in the making. The quantum resonance cascade was more than a weapon. It was a fundamental reimagining of how information could interact with reality. Quantum entanglement networks that had been quietly developing across the planet suddenly came into full synchronization. Each node was a human mind. Each connection a potential of infinite complexity. The Zarkax fleet began to experience something beyond traditional warfare. Their ships didn't just malfunction. They began to transform. Biological systems became computational networks. Weapon systems started generating art. Communication arrays produced philosophical treatises. The very fabric of their technological infrastructure was being rewritten at a fundamental level. On the surface of Mars, a research station that had been preparing for this moment unveiled its contribution. Drawing from decades of terraforming research, extreme environment adaptation, and quantum communication technologies, they had developed something unprecedented. It wasn't a weapon. It was a method of cosmic communication. Imagine a defense system that was simultaneously a peace offering, a method of conflict resolution that transformed the very nature of conflict itself. The indigenous researchers from Australia, who had been working on quantum communication technologies, saw their work come to fruition. Their approach, which blended tens of thousands of years of ecological understanding with cutting-edge quantum physics, became a critical component of humanity's response. Sub-Regent Kreltax watched in growing horror as their invasion fleet began to disassemble itself, not through external destruction, but through a process of fundamental transformation. Ships became gardens. Weapons became communication arrays. Military protocols dissolved into complex ecological systems. Dr. Zaranguian's biomimetic adaptive network reached its full potential. What had begun as a research project was now a living, breathing method of cosmic interaction. The battle wasn't about destruction. It was about potential. Each Zarkax ship encountered a fundamental choice: transform or cease to exist. But transformation wasn't destruction. It was an invitation to become something more. Across the galaxy, species that had been watching the conflict began to understand something profound. This wasn't a war. This was an evolution. Captain Miranda Chen understood something the Zarkax could never comprehend. Conflict was not about winning or losing. It was about growth. The final transmission from the Zarkax fleet was not a surrender. It was a question. What are we becoming? And humanity's response echoed across the cosmos. Everything. The invasion ended not with a battle, but with a conversation. A conversation that would reshape the understanding of existence itself. The universe watched and learned. 50 years after the invasion, the concept of Earth had become something entirely different. The global nexus, a living network that was part city, part communication system, part planetary consciousness, stood as a testament to humanity's transformation. It wasn't a capital or a government building. It was a dynamic, breathing entity that shifted and evolved with every moment. Dr. Aria Chen, granddaughter of Miranda Chen, walked through the holographic interfaces that formed the Nexus Central Chamber. Her work as a cosmic interaction specialist was unlike any profession that had existed before the invasion. Incoming translation request, her neural interface whispered. But this was no ordinary communication. The Galactic Collaborative had become something unprecedented. No longer a rigid political structure, it was a fluid network of potential, with humanity serving as its primary catalyst. The transformation hadn't just affected human civilization. It had fundamentally altered the understanding of existence across multiple species and star systems. On what was once called Mars, now a thriving ecological research platform, Dr. Y. Rodriguez oversaw a project that would have been impossible before the invasion. Terraforming wasn't just about changing a planet's environment. It was about understanding the fundamental language of planetary evolution. The Zarkax, once conquerors, had become something entirely different. Their civilization had been completely reimagined. No longer a hierarchical empire, they were now a distributed network of cultural and technological explorers. Some of their most brilliant minds had integrated directly into human research networks, not as conquered subjects, but as collaborative partners in a grand cosmic conversation. Ambassador Krulvax, who had once led the invasion, now served as a primary liaison in the Interspecies Potential Research Division. Their role was to help other civilizations understand the fundamental principle that humanity had introduced to the galaxy. Potential is not a destination. It's a journey. The economic systems that had governed galactic interactions for millennia had been completely transformed. Value was no longer measured in resources or territory, but in potential for growth, adaptation, and mutual understanding. A transmission burst from the edge of known space caught Dr. Arya Chen's attention. It was from a previously unknown civilization, one that had been watching humanity's interactions with the galaxy. Their message was simple: we are ready to learn. The global nexus hummed with possibility. Each communication was a living thing, part data, part art, part philosophical exploration. The boundaries between technology, biology, and consciousness had become beautifully blurred. In the underwater research cities that now dotted Earth's oceans, teams of scientists worked alongside beings from a dozen different star systems. They weren't just studying the universe, they were actively participating in its evolution. Dr. Y. Rodriguez looked up from her research, watching a group of young researchers, human, Zarkax, and 3 other species, collaborating on a project that would have been unimaginable 50 years ago. We're not exploring the universe, she often told her students. We're having a conversation with existence itself. The invasion had been a catalyst, but the real transformation was ongoing. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited it to grow. As the sun set on the global nexus, casting holographic patterns that danced with information and potential, Dr. Arya Chen allowed herself a moment of reflection. The cosmic law was simple now. Never underestimate the potential of becoming. And somewhere, in the vast and infinite darkness between stars, something was listening. Something was learning. The conversation continued.